to YouTube. Discord audio check, check 1, 2. Discord video's good. Let's take a look at YouTube. YouTube video is good. Looks like audio is okay as well. Check, check 1, 2. Good morning. It is Friday, October 13th, 2023, and this is a coding stream that we're starting a few minutes late because I was in this AMD long, a reversion long setup that I just exited. Let me put this onto a 15-minute so it's a little bit easier to see. What I saw was the rest of the market selling off. AMD sold off. AMD came on the daily into a pre-established support level of 1, 2, 3. Essentially, if you include these fourth and fifth days, like a pivot level here around this 107-ish area, this zone. Comes into here and then just tremendous buying happening down here in this area, and that's what started making me think, you know what, if this buying continues and we're not going any lower, then maybe it's a reversion long setup. Everything else is making lows. Tesla was making lows at the time, and AMD is just hanging out here at this support area. That's a reversion long setup of mine. So saw these large volumes go over, saw all that buying happening, and also saw this very severely negative delta come through. And Fat Cat mentioned this a week ago or a couple days ago about he's seeing delta trades work again. I'm definitely seeing the same. I've taken a lot more reversion longs this past week than I have in the past few months, and just use this large volume node as a place to bid after we actually moved up and away from there. That buyer, so that institutional buyer who was just gobbling everything up here, started to outweigh the selling pressure, and it drifted up, and I just waited patiently down here for it to return and retest that level where that buyer was, gobbling everything up. And when it came down there, guess what? That buyer was still there, gobbled it all up again, and we moved away from that level quite quickly. That's edge right there. Tilting the table in your favor, being patient, waiting for prices to come to you, fighting for your prices, waiting patiently for the setup to evolve and turn into what you're looking for. And got the long on here. Stop was just down here. Pretty tight risk, well defined. First target, I was looking to the left here, this large node here on this 107.20. You know, that was a level on the way down where a lot of activity happened, so I thought it might be a place we revisit again, and it sure was, and that's where I got out of the trade. So not without mistakes, though. I got rid of my size. Actually, maybe it isn't a mistake. I need to study the trade recording after the day's done, but I got out of most of my size. I left the runner up until that spot, but I got most of my size here after repeated attempts and failures to get through that 107 right here. Every time we came up to that 107, we just backed off. 107 backed off. We even got above it by a couple pennies. 107 backed off. And after watching that happen several times, I said, okay, I need to lock in some of this profit here in case this is an actual continuation situation. We do go back down to lows. I'd not want to give this up. And then, of course, moments later, it rips through. But, you know, those are the things that I'm working on. I'm trying to hold my winners for longer. A lot of work to do on that front. Anyways, this is a coding stream, not a listen to me go over my trade stream. So what are we doing here? Let's pull up this. Let's make this like this. Where were we last time? Here. So after all that, let's start this coding stream. Today is the 13th. And, oops. Let's do this thing. Ahmed is ready with a question. Thank you, Ahmed. Let's go ahead and copy that over here and paste that. And All right, Ahmed. What do we got here? We got a couple different items. Looks like number one, this didn't work for me. Uh, Input set string, string value, and then character or pointer, the input value is equal to get string. Gotcha. So what, Ahmed, let's start with this number one right now and just focus on this. What did you see when you tried to do this? Let me pull up the documentation for this in the background while you type that out. I'm going to pull up SC string. Actually, no, it's not SC string. It's going to be on the inputs. It's going to be on the inputs. It's going to be, yeah, this stuff right here. And let me just search for set string right there. And we can come down here. Can you guys see this okay? Is that visible all right? And yeah, okay. So Ahmed, what did you get when you tried to either set a string? Which part of it wasn't working? Was it the part where you were setting the string? That didn't work, or was it the part where you were trying to read the value? And while he's typing that out for the rest of you in attendance here, feel free to throw your questions into the coding text channel, and I will queue them up down here. There's no place in the study settings to put the string that I want to input. I see. So let me type that out. No place in study settings to input the string. Now, Ahmed, did you go ahead and already set up that input 0 properly up at the top in your SC, or like at the top of your function? Oh, you posted some code here. Let's grab this and paste it in. And let me change this to code so that it's a little bit easier. And then I'm just going to move this over here and let's change it to a different color. So here's the function that Ahmed is working with, and let's take a look. So, okay, I think I see the problem, Ahmed. So right here at the top of your function, before your set defaults code block, you're setting the string. Use a different color here. You are setting the string on an input that has yet to be declared or initialized. So because this input element 0 of this input array has yet to be declared and initialized, you are essentially setting a string on nothing. This is not yet, this 0th element has not yet been declared or initialized as an input, and you have not set the defaults for it. So what I would recommend doing is for SC input 0, go ahead in your defaults block, create input 0 name, and then an input 0, you could put the set string down here actually. So move, move this down here, move this down here, and then also set a name. So I typically, wow, I typically don't do it this way, but you can. I typically explicitly pull out and set this as an SC input reference. You don't have to, but we can show it both ways. So SC input 0 dot name, and then you can say this is my string input or something, right? You need to put that here, let's say, and then put this down here. So go ahead and try that. So then this piece, then down here you'd put, SC input 0 dot set string to whatever. That might be why you're not seeing anything, is because you haven't provided a name for that input. Typically what I do, just to make the code more readable, it's not more correct, it's not less correct, but what I do to make the code more readable, guys, is I say, I declare an SC input reference, and I'll say something like, my string, let me move this over a little bit. my string equals sc.input 0. You don't have to do it this way. You can directly operate on 0. I think I misspoke earlier when I said that this is not initialized and declared. It actually is initialized and declared. It's that it didn't have a name set on it yet. So I think the actual object, the SC input is reference is actually set here. It's just it has not been given or provided a name, which might be why we're not seeing it show up in that settings block. Apples on Lowe's. So typically what I do is this way, and I create a separate variable, and then what I can do is go, input my string dot name equals my fancy name, and then you can say my string dot set string to whatever you want. So go ahead and try either of those methods. These are essentially equivalent. I think this is a little bit easier to read, but your mileage may vary. Let's take a look at question number 2. Good question. Question number 2. Extend the chart according to the visible high and low. It's not possible to convert subgraph to draw. What do you mean by this? Extend the chart according to the visible high and low. What do you mean by that, Ahmed? Extend the chart according to visible high and low. You want to programmatically have the chart, what is it? What is that axis called? The y-axis? You want this y-axis to automatically scale to the visible high and low for a specific time frame. Is that what you mean? Okay. So yes, there is a way to do that. Let me think about how, let me try to remember that. It looks like a couple of other names are hitting lows here. I don't know if anyone's watching the equities markets right now, but not going to look into that yet or right now. So yeah, there is a way to do that. Let me try to remember how I've done that before. Let's go back to our documentation actually. Might have to search for it because I can't remember it quite off the top of my head. I think it's actually under functions. And was it called get high? No. Get highest returns the highest value over specified. Nope, that's not it. I might need to look into some other code that I have to actually remember how I did this. But let's take a look. What about set chart? Let's go to the top. Set chart. Where's the set chart stuff? No, what if it has something to do with scale? Okay. This is definitely one I've used. So this one gets you the scale's highest price and the scale's lowest price. But what we need to do is actually get the setter version of this. This is get graph visible high and low, which will give you 109.05 and 106.25 in this instance. And look at this AMD come all the way back in. Wow. And there you go. That's a great example of why in this market, from a discretionary perspective, I am just scalping these large caps right now in this market environment. Look at this just turnaround. I mean, that's so frustrating if you're trying to sit and do like move to move plays or positional plays, and then this stuff happens. So always easy in hindsight, but Amazon, Lowe's. Anyway, so we want set graph visible high and low because get graph visible high and low will give you that high and low. You pass in two doubles as a reference and it will set them as high and low. And you can actually do that for a lot of, you can use this for a lot of cool things. For example, on the footprint chart, I actually use this to adjust the VAP size per tick. In other words, how many ticks does one volume bar represent using the tick size and this high and low so that I can auto scale that might not even make sense. I built this thing called VAP. I believe I've shared this already in videos on Lowe's. But basically, it looks at the high and the low, and based on some magic multiplier, it can make these bars thicker or thinner based on how much granularity you want to see and how you zoom in and out on the scale here. But let's look for set graph visible, and they don't have it. Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if there's something about scale here. Let's see. Set the highest price for the scale. That's the one that we're already looking at. But what about if we want to adjust? This is region value to pixel. Nope. Interesting. Now let's take a look at other options we have for, maybe it's in the variables area. Let's take a look at scale. Auto scale padding percentage. This is actually a good example of how to find stuff in documentation when you don't know what you're looking for or if it even exists. This is what I'm doing here because I don't think I've ever used what Ahmed is asking for here, and I don't know what it looks like or how to use it. So this is how I go about finding it. I try to find keywords and go to the documentation and search for them. You know, I got just Chrome open here and I got my find window and I'm just looking for scale. So look at what we have here. Base, graph, scale, range, top. I wonder what that does. This is a float read write. This is the top max value of a user-defined scale range for the main price graph. And boom, Ahmed, this is what you want right here. So you can take this and you can programmatically say this is equal to whatever, you know, my top price, let's say you have a float, and then I'm assuming there is a scale range bottom that is right there. And you could do the same thing right there, because my bottom price, and then you can, you know, build these out however you need to in order to accomplish that. So that's cool. I didn't know how to do that before, but that's new. Um, let's see, what is Ahmed, that addresses this one, right? What does this one mean? It's not possible to convert the subgraph to draw. What do you mean by that? Okay, this number one worked. Great. Perfect. That's done. What do you mean by it's not, if it's not possible, how do I convert the subgraph? It's okay if there's a way to scale. Yeah, I would try this then. Try this first, and then let me know if that doesn't work. But you should be able to do what you're describing using this. Okay, dig into the XML HTTP response, and then what's this last one? This makes the study flash. Let's cover this one first, because this is kind of, I might come back to this one later. But let's take a look. This study makes the, or this function makes the study flash. Bar period, intraday bar period parameter, set bar period parameters. So how are you, I'm assuming when you say this function, you're talking about this one, set bar period parameters. How are you using this? Like, what's the context of this? Is that function being called on every tick? Or like what, how are you using this set bar period param? Because if you are setting it, if you are using it on every single tick, that's going to be very taxing on the system. So that might in fact make it flash. You got auto loop on. Okay. Let me let me move these two over here because they're related to number 2 up here. So you've got auto loop on. You'll send the code. Okay. I see a couple of other questions here. Let me stage them while Ahmed is sending over that code. Let's get Mustache. Let's put Mustache's question here. Oops. And then we've got, oh, is that it? Is that the only other question? Okay. Yeah, you can send me the code for the context of this, or you can just type it out, Ahmed. How you're trying to use this. I think that if you are not careful when you're calling this function, you can absolutely have the study flash in response to that. Absolutely, because this is probably in the under the hood of the desktop application forcing a refresh. I would not be surprised if it was. Got another question from Fadezim. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let me put that down here for the next question after Mustache. Mustache. Yeah, post them. I'll queue them up. Mustache, go ahead, post it. So Ahmed, I'm just waiting on you to say how you're using the set bar period. Otherwise, you can send me the code or just describe it out in chat here. So, Mustache, I'm going to move on to yours. So Mustache is saying, I'm trying to borrow code from a pivot study, but it's saying error expression list treated as compound expression in initializer, and then a whole bunch of, I'm not even sure what this is. When I initialize the calculate pivot points function, it says error calculate pivot points cannot be used as a function. Calculate pivot points. I'm not familiar with this. Let's go ahead and look up the documentation. Calculate pivot points is going to be under the functions, and I'll just search calculate pivot points, and I don't see it. Why do I not see it? Calculate pivot points. I am typing that correctly. Calculate pivot points. Is it possible that this is not a function? The pivot point study. Mustache, if you have a mic, jump on, just to make it easier. And
Hey,
actually,
can you hear me?
all of you, yeah, I can. Hey, when you have questions and it's your turn, uh, jump on the mic and we'll go over it. Mustache, hey, good morning.
So I tried to borrow the code and I just pulled the entire code just to test it from a pivot points daily study
Okay,
it's in their studies 8 folder, I think it is.
okay.
I was looking right now just to verify, and it pulls up that code after I pulled their like base documentation code for it, and I just copied and pasted it into its own study, and then it gives that. I can post the whole code that they have if you want.
Is this
There's a lot
a
of
native? Is this, let me make that a different color. That's not better. That's not better. Gosh, it ain't easy being colorblind. I can't even see that. Jeez.
so in the actual code it has that right there as like a calculate, I guess, but it doesn't have the double in front of it. And I've tried to put the double in front of it, and then I've also tried to set it as like an initial double to pull that from, and it still doesn't work.
You said studies 8?
Yes, and
Let
it's
me
at
let me
line
open this.
3975.
Let me open this. Oh, jeez. Gonna get rid of these white spaces real quick. It's 10,000 lines of code, but there we go. What line? Say again.
3975.
3975. Pivot points daily. And what was it called?
And then where that,
Calculate pivot
yeah, where that
points
error
right there. Calculate pivot points.
is
Why am I not seeing the documentation for that on this? That's weird. ACSIL calculate pivot points. Calculate pivot points. Why is this function not documented? Pivot point
Hello,
variables.
Rosie. I think it's from the SC study function.
It's from, oh, hey, it's from the SC studies function. But
Yes.
is there documentation on it? Do you know?
I
Let's
think you
split
can
this
find in
window.
your local file.
yeah, 'cause I
What's
tried
the
putting like SC dot in front of it and it didn't work.
SC study functions? Calculate pivot points. Thank you. There we go. There it is. Let's move this to the right side and make this larger and make these equal. So on the right side we have SC study functions. Here we have studies 8. Maybe they just don't have it documented, and maybe you just um, have to read through it, the code right here. So you are using this, but it's telling you you don't have, or this is not a function, is what you're saying, Mustache.
Yes.
Calculate pivot points. Error calculate pivot points cannot be used as a function. Why cannot it not be used as a function? It certainly looks like a function here. It returns an integer. It accepts a million different inputs. Certainly looks like a function to me. Why can it not be used as a function? Okay, let's take a look. Where, who's using it? Where is this double? Where
That
did it?
only pops up in the error. And then since
Ah,
it said that, I tried to put it like above that section of code. I tried to put double calculate pivot points in case it needed to like pull it or something. And that's when it
mm,
returns that bottom error.
no, it shouldn't need to. I mean, if this is compiled into um, the DLLs for the studies, it should be available just off the SC object as in the format that it's described and defined here. I don't know if they're actually using this specific definition and implementation of this function for that compiled DLL, but and here's Microsoft on Lowe's. I don't know if they're using this specific version, but the fact that they're saying that it's not, that is really confusing. Yeah. So can you show me how you're calling this pivot points? And I think is
Um,
Fade Zim, did you
I
post this in response to Mustache's question? Is this related to this?
It's somehow related, but I think it's a different question. The way you use this function is you need to copy this function into your study file and then use it.
Oh,
yeah,
so
I
it might
literally
not be
so
pre-compiled, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
that's how I use it. Like in my market keyword
Ah,
study, I
okay.
copy the function from AC study into my study file. But it's a
gotcha,
lot of code. I want to find a
gotcha.
simple way to, yeah, it's similar,
So
not
I
similar
wonder,
concept.
yeah, it's very, very similar. So I wonder, both of you, if this function is not actually pre-compiled into the DLL that's distributed with Sierra Chart, and you need to actually do what FadeZim just said, and bring this into your local C++ file. Like, and you said you did, Mustache?
Yes, correct.
No,
I
I
use a
didn't pull
different
that.
function.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I
You
literally
use,
just copied and pasted their code in studies 8 and it didn't work.
gotcha. Okay, so here's what I would do, Mustache. Take this function, go like this.
In the entire content to your study.
And then, yeah, copy that into your C++ file, into your study that you're building out, and then try to call it and see um, if it can find it in there, because this thing's huge. Jeez, yeah, that's big. Um,
It's
because
a
I
lot
think
of like the pivot point. I think it's a lot of different ranges, like range 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
probably not. compiled in the DLL distributed with Sierra chart, but that's just a guess. I'm not 100% certain, so, but that's my guess is that this is not actually. And then it looks like Fadezim wrote. You wrote a pivot range study, and is this it right here? It's available for everyone to look at this link, if you want to look at the study that he wrote.
Okay.
Okay. I see another question from Funbun, which is a fun name. We're going to put that down here. And then Ahmed, I see you posted the code. I will swing back to you. So the question is, hello, how would you approach the building of a study which alerts when upwicks on the chart overlap each other? If we see an upwick and then a few bars later there's another upwick that overlaps the first one. So let me just clarify. Funbun, do you have a mic? Assuming, okay, you don't. Let me just make sure I understand what you're asking. Oh, perfect. You posted a screenshot. Let me copy that. This is from AMD today. I think I was actually that's where I was long in this waiting. That's funny that you posted this because I got long right here on this AMD and I kept seeing it wick out at 107. Oh, right here. These guys. So this just happened after the coding stream started. So you're saying when you say when they cross each other or when they overlap each other, you're saying this is only an overlap in the sense of a specific, in the context relative to a specific price. They are not actually overlapping each other objectively, right? So this is only with the context of a specific price that these wicks are overlapping. And that's what you want to be alerted to, is if there is a prior wick and then another wick that falls into the range of the prior wick, then how do I find out? And your question is how do I approach building something like this? Correct? How do I approach building an indicator like this? Is that the question? Typing. Would it be a study or alert function? I don't have any experience with Sierra chart alerts. I just don't use them because I write my own code rather than use like spreadsheets or alerts or anything. So I actually don't know. Maybe someone else can speak on the alert piece. As far as the study piece, I think that it invokes several follow-up questions, which this might be helpful from just the perspective of how to approach solving problems and how to approach finding a solution to a scenario that you're trying to build out and develop. So the first question that comes to mind for me when I look at this idea that you are presenting is, how do you know when to stop referencing that particular wick? When is there the reset? So let me write these down. So these are Frozen's questions regarding the above, if you will. And the first question is how do you know when to stop referencing, let's call it wick 1? Is there 1A, is there a time interval or a like a rolling window or a number of bars, etc. That needs to be explicitly identified and set, because otherwise you will have a situation where you will never get away from referencing Wick 1. Let's just call this Wick 1, right? This is Wick 1, and this is Wick 2, just so that we can refer to them. So if you don't reset that, but you're saying 5 bars. Okay, so 5 bars later, so here's bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at this point, right here, this is no longer relevant, which means at this point right here, you are not getting an alert because this is no longer relevant. And this is where I'm saying, like, how do you know where to stop referencing that wick? Maybe the better way to approach this fun bun is to ask, what are you trying to accomplish? Not from the alert standpoint, but what does this mean to you? What are you trying to identify here? I mean, obviously you're trying to identify places that both have wicks, right? I get that, but how are you going to use that? And maybe there's a different way to reversal potential. Gotcha. So you're saying if I see multiple wicks happening across a period of time in the same zone of price, that may be there might be a seller in this case sitting up here in AMD, just keeping a lid on it, and that might be a good spot to try to tilt the table in your favor, maybe short it or get out of your long or whatever. Um, uh, or if it does get through there, you can initiate a long after that, something like that. But basically, identification of a supply area is what it sounds like you're looking for. Um, yeah, that is a good question. Let me think about that. Hmm. I think so. One problem that I have with the 5 bar thing is that the 5 bar thing is what I call a magic number. You know, you said 5 bars. Why not 6? Why not 4? Right? Devil's advocate. Why not? Exactly. 5 is just but no matter what magic number you put in, it's still going to be a magic number. So I tend to shy away from these, especially when I'm working with clients. They'll be like, whatever, just make it 5 bars. And it's like, well, no, not whatever, because that it will degrade over time. Right now in this market environment, it might be 5 bars, but that's just an arbitrary number that you chose. That's completely subjective, and it has no if you don't have any sort of basis behind it, that won't work in a future market regime. So I tend to be against magic numbers. Sometimes they're necessary. They're a necessary evil, but overall I tend to be against magic numbers. Um, One other way that you could do it is classification of wick size. So let me get rid of some of these drawings that I added here. As I look through here, I see different wicks. This one, I would classify this wick as larger than the body. This wick right here, I'd classify as maybe almost equal to the body. This wick right here, I would classify as not greater than the body. So maybe what you do is you break down the data set by classifying the events or the things that you're seeing, and then examining them after you've done that first pass through and classified these various wicks. How big of a, so that's the second question question 2 is, how big of a wick do you need in order for it to count? Okay, Ahmed, see it. I'll loop back around to you, Ahmed, either offline or. For simplicity, any wick size. So you could have a candle that's very, very, very large, and even if the wick is this tiny little thing, that would still count as if it intercepted this price range. Okay. Yep, just the concept. Okay. Okay. Well, so here's how I would go. I'm skeptical about the classification piece of it, but here's how I would go about it. I would say, oh, actually, before I say that, then the third thing that I would ask is, how do you know, or when do you, rather, when do you reset, or do you, when, or do you reset Wick 1? In other words, if this is Wick 1, this is Wick 2. So there's your spot right there. That's it, right? Or does this become Wick 1? And when does that happen? Like why not have this be that spot where you have intercepting wicks? This has a wick, this has a wick, this wick is intercepting this wick, so this would qualify for the things that you're describing. But also, when does this become wick 1, or this become wick 1, or this become wick 1, etc.? This is a problem for what you're trying to accomplish because there's no clear definition of how to persist Wick 1 into the future and when it ceases to persist. So you need to think about the thesis of what you're trying to accomplish, which is why I was saying earlier, what are you trying to accomplish with this analysis, rather than looking at the code side of it, because why can't this be Wick 1? And this one, like, look, if this right here were Wick 1, you have it happening 1, 2, 3 right there. Boom, boom, boom. So basically what you're going to have happen, and this one, if this was Wick 2 to this Wick 1, that would be 1 right there. You'd have all these false positives, essentially. But you didn't intend for those. Like when you shared this screenshot, you specifically put an arrow here and an arrow here, but you didn't put any arrows here, so I'm guessing these mean less to you than these. But why? You'll need to think about it. Exactly. You'll need to think about it because you need to be able to explain very, very concretely why this is relevant to, and this is relevant back to this, but this is not relevant to this, and this is not relevant to this, and this is not relevant, or this one's not relevant to this, and likewise for that, and this one too, right here to these two, and these two. So yeah, I would go back and think about what it is you're trying to accomplish. What is the meaning of this? What's the thesis behind this? I'm assuming this is not happening in a vacuum, and you are interpreting this as a piece of edge. So yeah, I would challenge you to go back and really define what you're trying to accomplish out of this. Good question, though. I think I missed a question from Mike, so I'm going to go back up and grab that. Mike, just see your question here. Gonna bring that there. Fun bun, does that give you stuff to think about? I didn't mean to leave you hanging, but I think you have to go back to the drawing board a bit and think about what you want to accomplish with this. Okay, awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. So Mike put something in, and then there's a meds thing, and then FadeZim also posted something. Let me grab that into here. And then let's take a look at this right here. I can't see the channel. What the heck? Yeah, that's weird. I will take a look at that Morphous. 1 second. I'm not sure why that's happening. Let me double check permissions. 1 second. No, everything should be. Everything. There's nothing in here or on you. That's weird. I'll look into that
Don't worry about it.
afterwards.
It's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine. Don't worry
yeah.
about it.
I'll look into it afterwards. But okay, so where are we? We're at Mike. Mike, good morning. An AMD on lows, and now I am looking like a genius for scalping out that that reversion long. Uh, Obviously, in hindsight, but I've been thinking a lot about edge, what that means, and um, I think I posted a video the other day about mindset of uncertainty from that one poker player. I forgot her name, but that was a pretty interesting video to me. You can't you don't know, like, how did she say it in the video? You have a coin and you can flip it and you can ask me what is the coin going to land on, and I'm going to say I don't know. And you can say, well, what do you think? And you can say, well, I think 50% of the time if I flip it 100 times or 1,000 times it'll land on heads, and 50%-ish amount of the time it'll land on tails. But if someone were to ask you, well, what about this very next flip? Which way will it land? Well, I don't know. There's uncertainty there. You don't know what the coin will land on. And with trading, you also don't know, just because the setup is looking like a screaming long or a screaming short, you don't actually know that that's going to follow through the way that you have designed. The best you can do is embrace that uncertainty and position yourself in a way that the table is tilted in your favor, and you have an overwhelming number of factors leaning your way, and even then sometimes it won't work out. Sometimes that coin will land on the other side from what you it might be a network issue. Discord files are not loading. Okay, maybe some issue with Discord. Anyways, Mike, we're on Mike's question here. Yeah, I want to do an analysis on the daily chart to determine whether I want to go long or short on the day. Can you use broader analysis on an intraday chart to look for entry signal to go long or short? This is a really great question. I really like this question, and yes, you absolutely can, and we heavily use that. I heavily use that. I think a lot of people do. There not only is multi-timeframe analysis really useful for my type of trading, probably for a lot of people out there. I know Fat Cat uses multiple time frames as well and references multiple time frames when he's trading and looking for setups. So that's nothing new, but yes, you absolutely can. Maybe what you're asking, Mike, is how does one from an intraday chart reference data from the daily? Is that kind of what you're
Yeah,
asking?
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, so if you can kind of just point me in like the general direction to get started on how to do that. So like if I'm looking on a daily chart and I see 5 days green in a row, I'm most likely not going to go long or not
Okay.
position biased to go long. So how do I determine like how do I look at the daily chart and then look for an execution on the intraday?
Yeah. So number one, maybe someone in the chat can find it. Actually, let me clear my throat 1 second. I think I have a video on how to grab data from other charts. So maybe someone can find that video. It's in the coding playlist somewhere on my YouTube channel. But you have, let's say you have this chart. Let me bring this back to normal size. This is Sierra chart, and you have your intraday chart number one, and let's say it's a 5 minute. I'm just using this as let's say, what do you trade? Futures, stocks? What do you
And
trade?
yeah, futures, NQ.
NQ. So let's say this is an NQ 5 minute chart number one, and then this is going to be chart number two, NQ daily, which Sierra refers to as historical. This one's referred to as intraday, and this one's referred to as historical. So let's say you write a study and it's running on this 5 minute. So you have your SC study, your C++ study running over here, and you want to reference this something happening over here. You absolutely can. This number right here is one of the key pieces. This is called the chart number or chart ID. No, chart number, I think, is what they refer to it. There's a whole series of functions that we can go peek at right now in the documentation from chart. I'm just searching the documentation for from chart. trying to find. Aha. So there's a couple here. You can see all I did was search from chart, and then you can see a bunch of different things in the documentation to get highlighted to help you, find what you're looking for. This function, get study array from chart, what that'll allow you to do is if you have a study running on your daily, let's say it's maybe volume or true range or whatever, and you're running a study on this one, you can call get study array from chart, pass it the chart number, pass it the study ID, and then you have that data in your 5-minute chart. Let's take a peek at what that looks like. This is get study array from chart. It accepts the chart number that you're looking to grab information from. That's going to be this guy right here. Okay. Thank you, Funbun. That's the video I'm referring to. For those of you who are on YouTube watching this in the future, this is the video I'm referring to, using values from other studies. So I show you here how to code that up, essentially, Mike, and you can follow along at your own pace on how to code that up. But going back to here, this chart number is the first thing it accepts. Actually, let's just copy this out. Let's just copy this out right here and bring it into here. Okay. Holy crap, that's long. Can I make that smaller? Can I make... Okay, I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller to make it easier. Hopefully you can still see that. So this chart number right here is this right here. Remember, this study that you're running is on this 5-minute intraday chart, right? Study number, let's say these are your studies, and this is study ID 1, and this is study ID 2, and this is study ID 3. Study number is going to be this guy. 1, 2, 3. Let's say you want true range, right, from the daily. You want to see how much. I actually have a very similar thing. Let me show you. Where is my this guy? This little guy right here. You see this 0.84? This is from my daily chart. This is doing the exact thing that I'm describing to you here. It's referencing my daily chart and looking at the true range of the day as a percentage relative to average true range on the ES. And right now the ES today is doing 84% of its average true range. And this is an intraday chart. It's a 5-minute chart where I'm bringing over data from a daily chart. So it's exactly what you're looking to accomplish. So study number is going to be the study ID on that chart that you're trying to source the data from. Now, you also have this guy, subgraph, because that study might have multiple subgraphs that you need to choose which one of those subgraphs data you're trying to grab. And then this last piece is going to be something that you pass in by reference, and this is where it's going to load all the data that you requested from this, this, and this. In other words, you're going to pass in an empty array reference, and this function will populate this array reference with the data from this chart number, this study number on that chart number, and this subgraph on that study on that chart. And then now you have that populated right here in your little study that's running on your intraday chart, and you can do whatever you want with it. So like for the example I gave, I made a drawing and I pasted the value 0.84 or 84% up here in my little intraday window. But that's exactly what I did. Does that help, Mike?
Yeah. No, thank you. That helps. So it just to clarify, a flow array reference is going to be like the return, is like
right.
the thing that gets populated.
Correct.
Okay.
So rather than this function does not have a return value, I don't think. Let me double check. Does not have a return value, so you're not going to get a value return. What instead you're doing is you're passing in a container, an empty container, that will be populated with the values from that subgraph on that study on that chart, and then you can use that. So before you call this, you would need to, oops, you would need to, oh geez, that's small. That's what she said. I couldn't resist. I see float array ref, my array. You'll need to look up how to properly set this up. There's plenty of documentation on there. But basically, you have to declare that before you pass it in here so that you can have this, and then instead of subgraph, or I mean, you could call it subgraph, or I could just call it subgraph array. You can call it apple, banana, you can call it whatever you want, but that's what you need to pass that empty container into here. This function will set that with the data from that subgraph, and then now that you have that over here on your intraday chart, you can iterate through it, examine it, and grab what you need from it to do what you need to do.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, fade zim. This is not possible to build a custom settings or media functions completely on their own, but you can take a copy of the source code. Gotcha. So this is referring to that question that we had. I don't even remember where, but that's what that's referring to. Okay. Let's see. I'll take another question or two, and then we'll call it. I got fade zim down here with the question. Let me grab that. So this question is, and then new method. I'm gonna grab your question, and that'll be the last one I'll take for today. So we'll put that here. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Ping something in the coding channel. I don't think I missed. No, I didn't. Okay. Fade Zim says
I have one question actually, but yeah, when you finish, let me know.
Alright.
I will say on the mic. It's fine.
Let me put Morphus down here. So in a current chart, can we refer to the previous day high-low close when I switch between full session and RTH session? When I switch between sessions, the shared function from SC study functions is long. I want to get rid of it. Is this last sentence related to this question? I think it might not be fade zim, right? This line is unrelated to this question, right? Is he here? Yeah, he is. Okay. How do you refer to the previous day high low? That depends. Let's break this out. Let's write how do I refer to previous OHLC? To previous day OHLC? Well, it depends. What does it depend on? Well, what chart time frame? Or in bar period is actually what I'm referring to. XOMs on highs. Are you running the study on? So why does that matter? Well, because if you are running a 5-minute chart, then grabbing the previous day's data is going to be a different process than if you're running a daily chart and you need to grab the previous day's data. Why? Because on a daily chart, you just go back one bar index and you have your OHLC stuff, your OHLC data available for you right straight away. On a 5-minute chart,
hello, Frozen.
you
I
don't
think
necessarily.
I'm trying to get is intraday chart less than 1 day. For example, 30 minutes or 5 minutes. So when I use the full session, I'll get the Globex high-low if it's higher than RTH. Or if I switch to RTH only, it will exclude the bar high-low from the Globex session.
Okay, so you have two pieces to your question. Let's
cases,
explicitly, yeah, two different. There's two different workflows in your question, and let's explicitly write them out. The first one is going to be, how do I get a previous day's OHLC from an intraday chart? That's one question. And two is, how do I enable, disable, ignore, or be aware of session times and RTH ETH, etc. Those are the two different questions that you're asking, and then together is what you're trying to accomplish. This first question, the big thing that you need to be aware of is that your number of bars that you made available in the chart will affect whether or not you can accomplish this. What do I mean by that? Let's open up AMD, and I'm going to go to chart settings, F5, and I am going to go to data limiting tab up here, and then I'm looking at this guy right here, days to load for intraday chart data type. Why does this matter? I have it set to 2 on this chart here. Why does this matter? Because if I have this set to 2, but I'm trying to look at, let's say, let's do this. Let's say today, is here. Let's pretend today is Monday. But let's pretend Friday was a holiday and the markets were closed. And the last time the markets were open were Thursday. My studies, or my chart, is going to say, hey, load the last 2 days. What is it going to find on Friday? Nothing. Likewise, if you had a study running on that chart and you were trying to find the prior day's range, but you did not have coded in for this type of situation, or you had in that study settings that number of days to load was not sufficient enough to go back to load all the data from the prior day, you will not be able to perform this calculation. You won't be able to go back far enough in order to perform that calculation. So this is something you need to be cognizant of if you want to be able to do this piece. You need to have, I guess the short version is you need to have enough data loaded in that specific chart in order to go back to the prior day. Okay, that's one. Number two, this session time thing, I don't usually work with these too much, but there are functions available. And let's go to the documentation real quick. Session time. So yeah, get session times from chart. You can programmatically fetch session times, and you can probably, I haven't seen, but I think there is a place where you can detect whether or not you have that, what is it called? Use ETH. It's back in chart settings. Let me open up chart settings. It's called like use, or is it in under session times menu? Use evening session like this. I think you can programmatically find if this is set to yes or no as well. And so I don't know where that is in the docs, but you can go check that out. So using those two pieces of information, what I think you can do is figure out if the extended hours or extended session is enabled, whether you need to be considering that in your calculations, and or whether or not you want to ignore that. You can also fetch the session times using that other function that we just looked at, get session times from charts, so you don't have to guess or hard code in what date times you need to be looking at the data from, because you can explicitly use it from what you read from the charts settings using this function, which is really handy. So even in the future, if you were to like change your session times to a different hour of the day, or you were to change whatever on your chart settings, you could still have this study perform accurately even with the updated session times without having to recompile it, because instead of hard coding your times for RTH, ETH, you're referencing what's on the chart. So that would be encouraged. Now, I've completely forgot what I was answering your question here. Let me reread this. Can we refer to the previous high day low close prices when I switch between RTH and yes? So yes, you can. Yes, you can. If you have enough data loaded and if you are aware of what session times you have enabled. Yes, you can.
Sorry, Frozen. I've got a
Okay.
question regarding the day data from Sierra or any feed, so for that matter. Does the day calculate 24 hours or does calculate per session? Where's the day
What
start
do you
on ES? Like, is it 5 Eastern time? The day is expired and the new day start at 6 Eastern time or at 12
I think
midnight?
that's symbol dependent, and I wonder if in global symbol settings, which I'm going to open here,
But when you
I
download
wonder
daily on Sierra chart, it doesn't give you an option to choose the time. If you know what
I
I mean.
wonder if yeah. I wonder if this has. So I think the symbol definitions that come directly from Sierra have that symbol's actual start and end times, because I did not code this in. This is global symbol settings, by the way, for those of you watching along. Um, so these global symbols, and you can update from the server if you want to grab the latest definitions, or if you haven't done an update of the desktop application in a while. So how do you know? Well, I would reference these. These are probably correct, or else override them with what you need. So it looks like the ES closes at 4:15, or right at the end. Does that answer what you're asking?
Yeah, I just want to know what the default is. Is default is midnight on any
It
chart globally, or is customized to stock market close
I think it's dependent on the symbol itself. So all these will be
feature?
every
Let's say feature,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Because
I think it's
the
symbol
day on the
dependent.
daily chart, it's the size, the candle is different. So if you're gonna close at 12 midnight, the candle obviously have more data than from the next day. If that makes sense, because we open,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, because if you open a chart on Sierra chart and try to put no intraday to historical
mhm,
data like daily, it
mhm,
completely doesn't give you any option to change the time. If that makes sense, they use the
And so
default.
it's like a segmented daily candle essentially that doesn't necessarily objectively represent the the time
No, it
of.
doesn't. I mean, if you go to symbols and sessions and the settings, they will show you nothing. It's gray out if you choose daily. If that makes sense. No,
Oh, yes, yes, yes. If you have, so if you're what you're saying is if chart data type is set to intraday chart and then you come
have
here,
option to change. Yeah.
this is grayed out.
No. When you choose historical data, which is starting from daily
Yeah.
onward, if you go,
If you choose historical,
yeah,
this becomes grayed out.
yeah, and basically it's keep running until midnight on a chart.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think one way you can get around that is by using this right here, intraday chart only. This is less of a coding thing and more of a Sierra chart configuration thing. But if you choose intraday chart only, but then you come to bar period and you force it to be day 1, minutes 0, seconds 0, milliseconds per bar 0, so it'll look like 1000. If you do that while having this on intraday chart only, it will render it as a daily candle because of this setting, but you will have more granularity to the
Start and
start
end
and
the
end
session.
times.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll give it a go. Thanks.
All right, I am going to try to get through new methods question here and then hold on, let me just clear my throat here. And then I need to get more coffee. Oh, I have a little bit left. New method, or is it num ethod?
You got it right the first time.
New method? Okay. Hey,
Hey,
are you in the States?
yeah, I'm in Washington,
Oh, cool. State or DC?
state, Seattle.
State? Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. Cool. So it's like 3 a.m. out there, probably.
Uh,
So
Here it's 8:30, 8:47.
I was being sarcastic.
Oh,
Um, so you're asking, I'm trying to accomplish something similar. I want something, I want to allow the study to be picked by the user and then have the input change so that they don't have to manually enter the ID numbers. And I see. So are you trying to say you want to be able to create a drop down where you can select other other studies from other charts?
Yeah, basically, like right now the code's working, but they have to manually enter the ID number of the study as well as the input ID in that study that I want to modify. But
Yep.
if I can just
Take
make
a
a
look
drop
at
down.
take a look at this video.
Okay.
I go through in this video how to set up an input that will generate a list of other charts and studies on those charts that you can just click through, and then it saves it and they don't have to enter an ID because it's just grabbing the number of studies. But if you want to look at the documentation, it's going to be, oops, in the input. Is it the input? I think it's the input. And I'm just looking for the word study here. Yeah. Set study, set chart, study, and subgraph. So this set chart, study, and subgraph, if you set that on an input, will turn that input into a select, like a drop-down menu thing where they can select the chart, the study on that chart, and then the subgraph on that chart. And there's other variations of this where it's just the chart, or it's just the study, or it's just the subgraph, or it's just the chart and the study, but not the subgraph. So look through this documentation on this inputs here with like set study, set study subgraph, set chart. Set chart, study subgraph, and I think you will find in combination with that video how to accomplish that.
Got it. And so that would be able to actually show a drop down of the input IDs as well.
Oh
in
yeah,
the study.
yeah, like it'll look like what do I have? What do I have here that would do that? This? No. Let me find one that I have. I don't even know if I have one here that has that. Does this have it? Yeah, here you go. It'll look like this.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Look at that video. It'll walk you through how to do that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, one last question from Mustache, and then I'm gonna go get more coffee and head off to work. So the question is, why is my code slow? And the answer is, it's all your fault. No. The answer is, if you're drawing stuff, it depends. Are you drawing stuff, when you're saying you're drawing stuff, are you drawing stuff with ACSIL drawing tools? Are you drawing stuff with GDI? If you're drawing with ACSIL drawing tools, a lot of people tend to forget. Jesus, where is ACSIL drawing? Let me load this documentation. A lot of people forget to set add method, this thing.
Oh, yep, I did not add that.
Preventing more than one chart drawing per chart bar or more drawings than intended. Read through this documentation on add method. You probably need to add this flag in order to accomplish what you're trying to do. But read through this first and understand